Joe, good morning and happy belated birthday to you.
Thank you very much. Appreciate that, Bill, Jeff, Andrew.
Good morning.
Good morning. Happy birthday.
72 already. Just
Wow.
You're talking about the temperature, right?
I'm hopeful of 72. It'd be nice. All right, what do you think, Joe, of this proposal by the governor?
Well, I mean, now is a chance to delve into these details. Ultimately, we're going to have a very difficult challenge, not only with the timetable to meet the April 1st deadline, which I think we need to do. That's our responsibility and obligation. But to find some common ground on some of these, there's a lot of questions here on many of the proposals and the concepts that he discussed and outlined yesterday. I'm particularly troubled that we continue to include policy into this document. This is a fiscal document, and that is just an ingredient for the inability to come together to find some solutions. So some of the things concerning, obviously, are payroll tax. What does it really mean? Still was not specific details as to what he's got in mind there. I'm concerned that if we put a new type of tax on, I get that we have felt some of the sting of what was done federally, even though it's yet to be determined what that true impact will be. We're seeing various different reports as to what it could mean to New York. But I'm not looking at new taxes or new fees, because I think that's the last thing when you look at affordability here in New York and for people to live here, to continue to live here, for businesses to continue to do business here. We've got to be mindful of all of that. On the positive side, the investment in education, despite the challenges fiscally, he's continuing to put more money in, and that's a good sign because that's an important area of our jurisdiction. Yeah. So it's going to be a difficult couple of months here.
Are you hopeful that we'll get through this budget without a battle over education funding?
Yeah, I think actually that was encouraging yesterday because the governor actually put forth additional aid. Now the legislature traditionally has gone and met that and increased it. So we'll have that conversation, but at least that was one of the positive aspects yesterday, that we're moving in a direction to continue to make significant investments in public education. And the other aspect is health care. I think he did some things yesterday that will be beneficial to our continued focus on the delivery of health care for some of the vulnerable segments of our society and in general. So those were encouraging. Some of the things that are difficult are some of the revenue enhancers that he discussed, because we're still trying to figure out what does it mean, because it could have a negative impact not only on residents but on businesses in the state. The payroll tax, as I indicated, that still has not been really flushed out. He gave a lot of different slides yesterday and some constructs, but there's still a lot of questions.
Yeah.
So it's going to be, I think in the end, if we stick to the 2%, hold ourselves to stay within, control our spending, much like we've put the cap on local property taxes.
Yeah.
That $4.4 billion deficit shrinks down to about 1.7, and then that's somewhat manageable when you're looking at a $153 billion plus budget.
And I see putting money into pre-K, and first when I look at that, I think fund schools to begin with, as opposed to funding a program that isn't even required. I don't think kindergarten is required by the state. Schools don't have to even offer kindergarten. So why are we putting money there? However, when you do think about it, in some of in the bigger inner city schools, I would think pre-kindergarten is really important, along with after-school programs, especially for families. A lot of kids go home and there's not a parent there. Talk about that and your thoughts on...
Well, I think you made an excellent point. I mean, the concept is for a well-rounded education,
right.
Early childhood development, that type of access, and trying to have children and families take advantage of that really is better. And I would yield to those who are in the field of education, but I think predominantly most would agree the earlier you start, the better it is right now. So that's why that's identified, and that's why funding is directed there. But the point you make is relevant. We still have to focus on primary education. If you can't fund that properly, then what are you accomplishing? But I think that we can get there this year. It's still, as I said, the numbers are daunting, but it's encouraging that we're moving forward positively with the investment in education. Some of the other areas now we have to look at. this is a time now for details, not only from a statewide perspective, but even regionally. I haven't had a chance to really digest all the numbers, to look at if there's any specific regional impact that I'm not aware of right now from anything that he proposed, because it was more of a macro approach yesterday when he delivers the message. So this is our opportunity now to dig into it. The other encouraging thing is he's continuing the tax cuts. These are moves in the right direction, even though they're modest moves, in my opinion, but the middle-class income tax cut will continue to move forward. This is going to be phase 2 or the second year of a 3-year program. So those things, despite the fiscal challenges, I think were encouraging. And then there are a lot of, as I indicated, a lot of the policy stuff that I always had an issue with, but yet we continue to do it. You know,
I want to ask you, Joe, would you have, if you were in Congress, would you have, and because listen, the ins and outs of New York and taxes, and there were Republican Congress people who voted against that tax bill. Would you have voted for it or against it?
You know, my concern was, and what I had proposed, what I thought was a reasonable compromise, and I spoke to members of the congressional delegation from New York on this, not only from our area but across the state. I think the answer would have been to focus on tax relief, to move forward in a manner that they were moving, but to recognize that there are states, such as the dozen states, that are going to be negatively impacted. If you're really trying to help people, then you would have did a phase-in, and you would have said, look, you guys got to look at your tax structure, and that's why I do applaud the fact that the governor's willing to do that, but we should really, truly look at our tax structure, not just talk about putting a payroll tax on. But so the point is, I would have said, let's in 3 years, if you don't, I would have kept the exemptions in, the local property